from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, 102 people wanted to know what the bongo drums were going to be telling me, if indeed they were beating, and I heard anything. Got messages from them. I have got messages from them. The bongo drums have been beating. But before anything, I need to make a correction. The question that I read out the other day in relation to the rather tragic occurrences at Southport, yes, the questioner did say Stockport, and yes, it's Southport. Sorry about that. Quite frankly, I didn't even notice that they'd made the error, but they did, and thank you everybody for picking it up. So now, since the bongo drums have been beating, I am going to give you a few bits of cha-cha-cha-cha-cha from them. So we'll start with what Gotta Laugh says. And Gotta Laugh, we are going to be laughing today. I've got news for you. We have reached new depths of preposterousness. Is Colombia using them, or are they using Colombia? With Colombia's undisclosed consent, of course, to further the enactment on misinformation, disinformation for censorship and digital ideas. Personally, I think the media story on this is yet again, as always, the distraction to what they are really up to. Well, that's very interesting, because what they are up to is really censorship, and they are quite determined to trash the king if they can succeed in doing so. They have been, their people, let me rephrase that, their people have been getting in touch with various news organizations, basically bad-mouthing the king in the most unacceptable, and it has to be said, unfair way. I'm gonna save that for the weekend, possibly, because there's too much ground to cover today, and I'll do no justice to anything if I spread myself too thin. My understanding is that Harry and Meghan's people are the ones who got in touch with Colombia to organize this visit, and it has duly been organized. Now, I have friends and relations in Colombia, and I can tell you what's being said in Colombia is not very flattering to either Harry or Meghan or the government. The government is in a big trouble. It is a government of chaos. It is a government of inefficiency. And they are evidently hoping to paper over the cracks with another royal, in quotes, visit. They had one a few months ago from Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. And they're getting another one, except Harry and Meghan are no longer working members of the royal family. But you wouldn't know that from the missives that they have been sending out to the press, which I'm going to get to in a little while, because not only have the bongo drums been beating, but birdies have been dropping things in my lap. And I am going to read out to you some of what I have been told. First of all, the visit is basically a three-pronged approach. Number one, to try to censor everybody. Number two, to keep themselves in the news. And number three, to try to open up new avenues of Aurora. She's just passed by me and all of a sudden my nose is running. Commercial activities, which of course will be purely and totally above board. But money is never far away from the agenda, nor is power, nor is their determination to shut everybody up so that they will have total control of the narrative. They have been briefing against the king, or their people, to be more accurate, have been briefing against the king in the most appalling way. What they have done is they have nominated Bianca Betancourt, who is, wait for it, the cultural editor of harpersbazaar.com, where, and I'm going to quote directly from Harper's Bazaar, where she covers all things film, TV, music, and more. When she's not writing, she loves impulsively baking a batch of cookies. Oh, how homegrown, how homespun. Re-listening to the same early 2000s pop playlist and stalking Mariah Carey's Twitter feed. How truly elevating all of that is. My goodness, the intellectual capacities are such that one really is absolutely stunned into verbosity instead of silence. On the Nigerian tour, they had Simon Perry from People magazine. Now, Harry and Meghan have tame journalists. Normally, if it were a proper royal tour, you would have a journalist representing, a pool journalist, who would cover everything, write up the copy extensively, and hand it out to everybody else, who would then be able to disseminate it far and wide. Harry and Meghan, of course, complained about the rota system, and the pool system is an intrinsic part of the rota system. So what have they done? They complained about it. They said they were going to be giving young people who were starting out a chance to make their way in their journalistic careers. So Simon Perry from People magazine and now Bianca Betancourt from harpersbazaar.com, both of which are extremely well-established companies, and both whose journalists are so lightweight. If they were a feather, they are so lightweight that they would have reached Mars 2 minutes after being released out of their canister. However, what Meghan and Harry's system is very simple. Approach journalists who they hope are friendly or tame and will effectively give them the narrative they want, and they will then be disseminated far and wide, which is what happened in Nigeria. Simon Perry did a very good job on their behalf. And now we have those feathers. They're getting up my nostrils. We have Bianca Betancourt, who's going to also be giving us a whole load of mush. I'm getting to more substantial bits of this in a second. Patricia May says, are the two frauds attempting to set up an alternate royal platform in the US? They have done everything they can to undermine the royal family and the institution as it is. Aurora, please, honey. Mickey, please. Run into the kitchen. Mummy's throat is parched. She needs some Coke. What? Don't be rude. They said, I'm to ask Harry and Meghan. They know the really good places to get Coke. Well, I've got Coke in the kitchen. Go on, go get me some Coca-Cola. Yes, they are attempting to create a royal platform in the United States of America. They have been approaching several of the mainstream publications, and their people have bone telling gross lies about the king. Gross lies. And playing the hard done by card. I don't want to say more at this point. They are also so featherweight that, again, if they were not tethered by glue, they would have drifted off into the stratosphere as well. These are people who are so deeply superficial that they would make a teaspoon look as if it had the depth of the Grand Canyon. But that's exactly what they're trying to do. If I could tell you some of what I know, but I can't because I would compromise other people in terms of their antics at the moment, you would have your hair stand on end. Wenfoot says, Dear Lady C, no doubt you've heard that the Harkle's Chief of Staff has quit. They are spinning it that it was a mutual decision. Do you think it's because they are planning some kind of stunt in Colombia to boost their case for IPP status? I wouldn't put anything past them after what I've been hearing of what they've been saying about the king and how they've been trying to spin things to his detriment and their advantage. I've taken soundings, let's put it that way, and the bongo drums have been beating. And I'm going to cover the subject during the questions, hopefully. There's nothing I would put past them at this stage. I am seriously convinced of what I've been hearing, that Meghan and Harry are not connected to the reality that ordinary people like you and I are connected to. That their reality is somewhere up there in the stratosphere, totally disconnected from your or my reality. Gosh, I tell you, Aurora's fur is really bothering me today. Yes, I've heard about the departure of the Chief of Staff, and I am going to quote, first of all, what somebody has told me, and I need to be careful how I put this, because Meghan and Harry have everybody that is employed or was employed by them under NDAs. However, people still speak. And some of us actually write down the things that we have heard. And of course, one does it giving them a guarantee of anonymity. And also, if Harry and Meghan's lawyers want to know, these things are always best handled at one remove. That way, nobody can be nailed. You see, your employers think they're so clever, but there are those of us who might even be brighter than them. So, I am told that they lure in the professionals who are initially duped by the facade of royalty, and then these poor victims of theirs. That's my interjection, not the quote. The quote is, and that they quickly realize that they're caught up in a grift, the like of which they've never experienced before. It's like living through Little Red Riding Hood. Ultimately, they can't wait to get shot of the couple. Harry and Meghan, I am told, are unprofessional, chaotic, and worst of all, and I can't use the word, but it begins with dis. Evidently, People magazine has claimed that Josh Kettler, and this has come from Harry and Meghan's people, was employed on a trial basis. I am told that's absolutely not true. He went in expecting A and got a Z. Or to put it another way, he went in expecting chocolate ice cream and got Haroldian and Meghan feces instead, which he was supposed to not only swallow, but scream delightedly, "Oh, it's so delicious!" I am told that, and I'm now going to broaden my horizons slightly to protect Josh Kettler and everybody else who has been in that boat with those two creatures. I'm told he was brought in to rescue them and realized, well, a pig in lipstick is still a pig. That's my interpretation of what I was told. He left of his own volition. He couldn't take it anymore, I'm told. He couldn't believe the level of unprofessionalism, I am told, that reigned supreme. I am told that working for them is like being a doctor in a lunatic asylum where the nuts have control of the hospital. There was no mutual consent about it. He evidently had had enough and he walked decisively. I am told that he and everybody else who has experienced what he has experienced has nothing but disdain for them. And I'm going to be careful how I say this. It is suspected that he's pleased with the speculation and the derailment of their Colombian tour. Evidently, I am told, and of course the person, and I need to say this for legal reasons, aside from anything, to protect poor Mr. Kettler, that he regards them as dangerous and he feels they should be neutralized. Well, they are dangerous. If you knew some of the things that have been going on behind the scenes with some of the claims that have been made to various publications in the United States of America about the king in relation to Harry and Meghan, you wouldn't believe it were possible. Well, he was due to go to Colombia with them and walked out with just a few days to go. He's been in post for 3 months. He accompanied Harry for the 10th anniversary of Invictus and acquitted himself very well. He then went to Nigeria and acquitted himself very well. But they were being followed in Nigeria by officials who were monitoring. And since he has got back, it has been one unprofessional and unacceptable thing after the other. And evidently, chaos and confusion reign at Montecito. Now, Josh Kettler was previously the Chief of Staff and Head of Strategic Partnerships at the communications platform Cognition. So he was sourced by them, and he thought he was going to get a prestigious job with a prestigious set of people. And has discovered to the contrary. He has discovered to the contrary that the only thing prestigious about Harry and Meghan is their claims to prestige. So I hope that answers that question. It's really interesting that Harry and Meghan would have the unmitigated gall to say that he cannot bring his wife and children back to this country because it's not safe enough. But he can go to Colombia with her. And before that, they were in Nigeria. And before that, they were in Jamaica. All of which, by common consent, are much less safe than Britain. Crazy. They are crazy. Helen Weiss says, I hear that Harry and Meghan Markle's Chief of Staff has resigned. Question. Why do Harry and Meghan need a Chief of Staff? What exactly do they do to warrant someone of that designation working for them? Creating a duplicate monarchy in the USA is a very expensive exercise, which they will soon have to find out as their finances dwindle. That's right. Well, they need a Chief of Staff the way Mariah Carey needs security. How else are people going to know that we're important unless we have a load of security? And we've got to have loads of staff. And of course, they, Harry and Meghan, use the names and job descriptions that are really royal, by and large, descriptions, or then they sully sometimes with corporate, but they have press secretaries, this, that, the other. I mean, as if they were actual functional royals in an official capacity. They are functional in a self-aggrandizing commercial unofficial capacity. But functional royals in a non-royal world are not supposed to be replicating the royal system. Of course, Harry and Meghan are busy asserting, on the one hand, that they don't like the royal system, and on the other hand, replicating it abroad. The hypocrisy, the inconsistency, the illogicality of it all beggars belief. But why do they need heads of chiefs of staff and such people? So that they will be able to create the impression that they are a fully functional royal couple, functioning officially when they are doing nothing of the kind. Now, what they have done is they have, and I'm going to scroll down, and because they have a deputy press secretary and a director of communications who furthers himself with a he, him, as from office of Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. I mean, the cock and bull is beyond belief. Well, they have been briefing the press that as to what their activities are going to be in Colombia. And I am going to tell you what they're going to be doing today and tomorrow. Because I know. Because Harry and Meghan may think they're so clever that they're just going to brief everybody who likes them, and nobody else is going to find out about it. But Harry and Meghan, everyone finds out about it. Well, if not everyone, certainly I do. So, the visit will begin, and this is an assertion from their, let me refresh my memory, from Calbulia. They are going to be the visit, and now this is grandiosity of the highest order. Can you imagine Princess Madeleine of Sweden doing something like this? Or even one of the exiled royals? They just wouldn't do it. The only other couple I know who were so grandiose were Grand Duke and Duchess Vladimir of Russia. And they really were a study in grandiose pretentiousness. And so are Harry and Meghan. The visit will begin with a warm and engaging welcome from Vice President Francia Marquez and her husband, Rafael Yerny Pinillo. This initial meeting will mark a formal introduction to the country and set the tone for the visit. Cock your finger and take tea. As part of the Archewell's Foundation's ongoing commitment to understanding the impact of the digital world on young people. Why? Who are they that they should be interfering with this? But anyway, let's continue. A visit to a school will take place with participation in an insight session, capital I, capital S. The session will provide engagement with students who are exploring the digital landscape and its effects on society. The visit will include a rich artistic tour through Colombia's diverse regions and history, featuring 4 distinct segments that showcase the nation's cultural heritage. This is briefing the press. The vice presidency, not the vice president, the vice presidency will host a summit in alliance with the Archewell Foundation and Luminet. It will bring together a diverse group of thought leaders, experts, activists, and community members who are united by a shared vision of fostering a healthier and more ethical digital landscape. Do you get this message? Censorship. She is going there to be playing not only the race card, but the censorship card with Francia Marquez, much to the discomfiture of people in Colombia. This Colombian government has been extremely divisive and is evidently trying to stoke up racial disharmony because, of course, Francia Marquez is one of the 6.8% of the population that is black. The summit will address the urgent need for responsible technology practices. I think they mean technological practices, particularly in the global south, where the impact of digital harm is disproportionately felt. Oh dear, do I see a little bit of race mongering coming in here? Attendees will explore innovative solutions and strategies, I'm sure lots of innovations, to ensure that technology serves the common good. In other words, Harry and Meghan's narrative, particularly in regions that are often underrepresented in global tech dialogues. Friday, there's a visit to Bogota. There will be a visit with young students in Bogota, highlighting the importance of socio-emotional well-being in education. A private luncheon. Aren't these people woke and left-wing? Surely it's called a lunch. Oh, sorry, we're dealing with Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, cock, finger and take tea. A private luncheon will be hosted by Vice President Francia Marquez, providing a detailed briefing of the upcoming Global Ministerial Conference on Ending Violence Against Children, which will take place in Colombia this year. Well, that's all very good and well. Nobody wants to see violence against children. But what does Harry and Meghan and Archewell's, what is their part in all of this? What part do they play? They know nothing. They are not qualified to speak on any subject of this magnitude. They are patently inadequate in terms of performance. Let me continue. An engagement with Colombia's Invictus Games team will take place. The agenda of the entire trip is focused on key aspects of the Archewell Foundation's priorities. Money. Additionally, and censorship. You've all got to shut up. Who do you think you are, you jerks? You're just the little people. Shut up. If you can't give me praise, shut up. And if you won't shut up voluntarily, we'll make sure you do. Additionally, the visit will highlight lifelong philanthropic endeavours for the Duke and Duchess, including highlighting the military community and female empowerment. Well, that's a bit of a joke, isn't it? Female empowerment. Meghan has climbed the vertical ladder in the most traditional way that any woman with ambition and who has limited skills except in feminine ways has done. Female empowerment. What has she ever achieved in terms of a woman without doing it on the back of a man? Or on a ladder of masculine attentions? Everything she's achieved has been through men. Her father, Trevor Engelson, Cory Vitiello. She's used men, Harry. And now we are being told that they are in a position to lecture anybody. And also, royals don't do that sort of thing on tour. They do not lecture people the way Harry and Meghan are going to be lecturing people. Anyway, enough said on that matter. Victor P says we're getting to something even more serious. Lady C, we're living in very interesting times. We certainly are. What do you make of Algerian boxer Imane Khelif filing a lawsuit in France alleging acts of aggravated cyber harassment? Evidently, both Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling have been caught up in the suit and could face hefty fines or imprisonment. Also, what do you make of the hefty sentences being passed by the courts in England on the so-called right-wing rioters, when left-wing rioters have been allowed to run amok on both sides of the Atlantic for years with little or no penalties? Very good question. Actually, it's two questions. But since they're both very topical and have both been taking place this week, I thank you for them. And they actually are really important because they go to the heart of the matter, where civil liberties are concerned, where freedom of speech is concerned, and where functioning within the law in an acceptable manner or functioning outside of it in an unacceptable manner would also be concerned. Well, let's take Imane Khelif first. I know very little about her situation beyond what I have read, which is that she is not a transgender woman, that she has XY chromosomes, according to the International Boxing Association, which has been stripped of its powers, and that she was allowed to perform under the rules by the International Olympic Committee, which took charge of boxing events at Paris 2024. I think what was everybody piled in, I think people actually have a right to give their opinion, and if it is a wrong opinion, I think as long as they are not being malicious, they should not face fines, or nor should they be imprisoned for expressing their heartfelt opinion. Now, the whole matter, of course, is very emotive, and I suppose you could say that if ever anyone were ideally situated to speak on the matter, it would be me, because I was brought up in the wrong sex. And I was reviled as a result of it. And the press damaged my life, writing lies about it over a period of decades. I'm sorry, I think that Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling have an absolute right to express their opinion on the subject. And if they are wrong, they, I would hope, would be big enough to apologize. I do think that it is a hell of a nerve of the French state to think that it has the right to fine and imprison people who are functioning in totally different countries. But this is an overreach that was started by the United States of America, seeking jurisdiction outside of its own jurisdiction. And I think this is a very dangerous principle. I think it goes against civil liberties generally. It goes against the fair application of the law. It also goes against the reality of sovereign states and the jurisdiction that applies within each and every sovereign state. I well understand Imane Khelif's distress, because she is not transgender. She is somebody who was born with, plainly, if what is being printed can be believed, I need to be careful how I put it, a condition that falls under the umbrella of intersex. If she is legally a woman, she was born and believed to be a woman, she would be what is called, depending on her condition, an XY female. Now, how does that apply in terms of sport? That becomes the question. Has her genetic condition given her an advantage? And if it gave her an advantage, should she be stripped of that advantage if she is in every other way a woman? These are very complex and weighty questions that I'm not sure this would be the forum to resolve in 5 minutes. What I will say, however, is if you are a runner and you're 4'11" and another runner is 5'11", or let's not be ridiculous. If you're a runner of 5'3" and another runner of 6'1", does that mean that height has to be capped? Do you see where it becomes complex? Also, if her genetic condition is androgen insensitivity syndrome, that means that she has no actual advantage in terms of testosterone, and therefore her chromosomes actually make no difference to the performance or to her femininity. Now, obviously, she has worked very hard and she is very muscular, which any woman will be who works hard. And I don't know enough to be able to comment beyond saying it is complex, but I do feel that, unfortunate as the way she was treated is, and I do not think that J.K. Rowling or Elon Musk or anyone else should be penalized for giving vent to their opinion, no matter how misguided it might have been. We cannot live in a civilized society if people are not allowed to make mistakes. And when people make mistakes, yes, other people suffer. But the fact of the matter is, this young lady's suffering by her own account was limited because she was not exposed to what was being said while it was being said. It did not affect her performance. She won the gold medal. I'm sorry, it's depriving people of their right to express an opinion, no matter how wrong or misguided it is. So that's the first part of the question. Now, the second part of the question is to do with, oh yes, the hefty fines. Yes, isn't it extraordinary how now that the Tories aren't in power and Labour is in power, they have, and Keir Starmer, who was the Director of Public Prosecutions and knows his way around the courts and the court system and the prison system. A few weeks ago, they were saying, oh, they have to release people who have committed crimes because the jails are full. Now, all of a sudden, they found space in the jails for what they call right-wing protesters. Well, which is it? People who were able to rob and steal and assault are being let out early. But, so there is space in the prisons. That's the first thing. First inconsistency. The second inconsistency is, why was it not done by the Tories with all of the other people who were mucking up the system? There have been endless riots in this country in the last few years where people were marauding and rampaging and nothing was done. Now, I actually think the government is right to have clamped down and acted quickly and efficiently. But their inconsistency is what is disturbing. So, is it only right-wingers or perceived right-wingers or people who are just in the vicinity and get caught up in the melee and who might, in the heat of the moment, do something stupid, as has happened with 102, and they're sent to prison, even though they didn't set out to riot. But anybody left of centre is allowed to maraud. I mean, if we are going to have a harmonious society, the law needs to be applied equally and fairly to everybody. Also, it needs to be applied in such a way that our civil liberties are not going to be encroached upon, and people are not going to be deprived of their liberty because they fall foul of the prevailing trend. I am thinking in particular of Lucy Connolly. She is a 41-year-old childminder and the wife of a Tory councillor from Northamptonshire called Raymond Connolly. She made a tweet, and she then took the tweet down, and they went after her, and they stated that she needed to, and she was given bail, and she has now been remanded in custody because she made what was basically a figure of speech comment. And she said in that figure of speech, she said something that was inflammatory, yes, but people are allowed to be inflammatory in their figures of speech if the situation is inflammatory and heartfelt. Since when was any government or legal system supposed to put people in jail for figures of speech? Because she qualified her statement by saying, "For all I care." I'm not going to repeat her statement because it was inflammatory, and I'm certainly not going to be repeating something that has got her into trouble. But at the end of it all, she said, "For all I care." So she wasn't proposing that some of the more extreme actions be executed. She was saying, if that's what happens to those people who are causing dissatisfaction generally in this society, this is what I say. And I mean, she was extreme, but she did use a figure of speech. It was because she then said, "For all I care," which made it absolutely clear that she was not actually inciting people to riot. And therefore, and also, she put up a thing for a few minutes and took it down. And she is now in prison. Well, on remand. I mean, excuse me. Is that going to happen the next time some agitator gets on television and says the most offensive and extreme things against people whose heritage in this country goes back several hundred years? The government needs to understand, if it's going to apply the law, it needs to apply it fairly and across the board. If it's going to be punitive and if it's going to be exacting, it needs to be exacting across the board. It can't decide people who are labelled right-wing are going to go to prison, but people who are labelled left-wing are going to be housed in 5-star hotels and rewarded for doing worse. So that's my take on it. And I think Elon Musk's statements were a little bit exaggerated in terms of the civil unrest. But I do think he is right in one respect. If this situation continues unchecked, it could cause divisions within the society, which could lead to serious civil problems. I don't think it's going to come to that. I have a lot more faith in the British people than he does, but then I'm British. He's not. He's South African, lives in America. He doesn't really know Britain. But again, he has his point of view and he is entitled to it. And even if it is sometimes exaggeratedly and extremely expressed, it doesn't alter the fact that if it has some validity, that should be acknowledged and respected. A free society does not demand and require that everybody package their thoughts and sentiments in exactly the same way. And if they fail to do so, they are going to be penalized. That is the orthodoxy of totalitarianism. Is this the way we want to end up? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I don't think we will. However, this government needs to understand that if it's going to apply the law to right-wing people of a certain ethnic background, they need to apply it equally to people of other complexions, both literally and figuratively. I'm not against the application of the law. I'm not against civil liberties and freedoms supported by a good application of the law so that civil liberties function best in a society where there is general freedom and where there is good order. A society to function truly freely and truly well needs to be orderly and respectful of others. That also means people with whom one disagrees. I hope you agree with me. If you don't, so be it. Do give me your comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please take good care. Godspeed. And keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you want us to be addressing. Thank you. Bye-bye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.
Because this is the first time something like this has happened.
And rather than seek help from us or from a friend, she decided to put an end to her suffering and took her own life. As Belle's father, I'd looked forward to her wedding day when I would proudly lead her down the aisle on what would surely have been the happiest moment of her life. Instead, I carried her down the aisle to her final resting place on what will certainly be the most miserable day of my life.
you find comfort. I think it's important for you to find comfort so that you will be able to enjoy the fact that they had existed, and you will be able to enjoy their memories.
One of the ways I've coped is writing, who I knew for only 42 years.
The support that I was anticipating would be here and is here.
It truly takes courage to talk about those who we've lost to suicide. And for me, today has allowed us to come together in a safe space to do this.
And his coach from his American football team said to me, he had 50 brothers. All he had to do was lift the phone and ask. And he didn't.
And it really is amazing coming together, although of course very emotional, but also very beneficial, I think, to all of us.
And now, in this moment, we come together to share our thoughts, our pain, and our feelings, finding strength and solace in the power of unity.
9 years ago today, and it seems impossible it's that long ago.
Well, maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love is how to be somebody who outdrew